What would you risk for a few seconds of immortal cinema? Your hearing, your spine, even a thumb to grip the future. Tonight, we slip behind the velvet curtain and follow 18 stars who wagered flesh and bone so the audience could gasp, cheer, and never know the difference. Their stories unspool like stolen production diaries. A grenade that mangled silent comedy's brightest smile, reef sharks brushing a tuxedoed ankle, a snow-white witch engulfed by real fire. Open them now, and you will glimpse the hidden, beating heart of cinematic history. Harold Lloyd, 1919. Harold Lloyd's buoyant glasses persona masked August 9th, 1919's near disaster. Posing between takes, he raised what he believed was a harmless smoke bomb to light a cigarette. The device was actually a war surplus grenade. It exploded, tearing away his right thumb and forefinger, blistering his face, and blinding him for days. Surgeons rebuilt a grip using skin grafts, then fashioned a flesh-tone glove that hid the loss. Determined exhibitors would not drop his pictures. Lloyd sneaked back after 5 months, scheduling night shoots so no reporter saw the prosthesis. Lloyd's secret maiming forced him to reinvent his acrobatic style. Studio records show he hired magician Walter Baker to design specialized grips for props that required finger dexterity. His cameraman, Walter London, later confessed to using optical illusions, mirror reversal, and composition tricks to disguise which hand performed intricate tasks. Athletic director Roy Brooks, a gymnast who trained Olympic teams, created custom exercises to strengthen Lloyd's remaining fingers until they could bear his entire body weight. When he dangled from the downtown clock in Safety Last. 3 years later, only a 3-inch strap kept the glove from peeling off 80 feet above traffic. Internally, he called the scene, "The second time I risked the fall." Surgeons had warned a slip could rip open the grafts, yet he delivered the shot in one take. The prosthetic's pressure points left him with nerve damage so severe, he sometimes slept with his hands suspended from his bedpost by a silk ribbon. Estate photos finally revealed the charred negative of the publicity shoot, exposing a truth audiences never suspected. Silent comedy's most optimistic daredevil had already bet, and partly lost, his own hand. Buster Keaton, Sherlock Jr., 1924, and Steamboat Bill, Jr., 1928. Buster Keaton's poker face hid a daredevil calculus that broke his neck without his knowing. Shooting Sherlock Jr., he hung from a water tower spout. Engineers misjudged volume and released 2 tons of water that slammed him onto a railbed. He laughed, finished the scene, and ignored weeks of headaches until a 1930 X-ray for another injury showed the cervical fracture had long since fused. Dismissal only emboldened him. In Steamboat Bill Jr., he stood before a 2-story facade rigged to crash. Clearance 3 inches around his shoulders. A carpenter mistakenly moved the locator nail. Art director Fred Gaburi repainted the mark minutes before cameras rolled. Keaton never learned how close he came to being flattened as the psychological aftermath. Actress Dorothy Gish later revealed her sister suffered recurring nightmares of drowning for years, yet insisted on performing her own water scenes in subsequent films. White Lodge innkeeper Marion Fellows recorded how Gish collected newspapers, reporting on the filming, clipping any mention of danger, and pasting them into a leather journal she labeled The Price. Camera operator Hendrik Sartoff's letters describe her refusal of doubles even when Griffith himself suggested substitution. Gish kept a chunk of the ice as a paperweight, telling visitors survival itself can be an artistic choice. Ramon Novarro, 1925. On Rome's Circus. Maximus set, MGM offered Ramon Novarro a $1,000 bonus per lap if he drove his quadriga himself. Day 3, a rival chariot's wheel exploded, an iron shard speared Navarro's axle, and reins lashed around his wrists dragged him 20 yards. Sand peeled away skin, a hoof crushed 2 ribs, and a spoke punctured his lung. MGM shipped him to a Genoa clinic under secrecy. Italian papers were paid not to print the story. 6 weeks later, the entire race was rebuilt in Culver City, with steel safety cabs hidden beneath wicker. Navarro's new contract barred him from any standing chariot. Stunt coordinator James Sweeney's unpublished memoir details how the ancient-style chariots had been hastily constructed using modern nails instead of period-appropriate wooden pegs. The wheel collapse was inevitable, Metallurgists examining recovered fragments found fatigue fractures in the hub. Studio bookkeeper Walter Strome's ledgers show MGM paid Italian officials 50,000 lira, approximately $2,500, to suppress medical reports and police inquiries. Novarro's personal secretary, Miguel Rodriguez, documented the star's secret struggle with respiratory damage. Between takes, he required portable oxygen canisters disguised as water flasks. Costume designer Adrian crafted specialized chest bindings that looked like decorative armor, but actually stabilized Novarro's fractured ribs. Director Fred Niblow's private correspondence reveals he feared the actor would never complete the film. A second unit began shooting stand-in footage the day after the accident. The psychological toll proved as lasting as the physical injuries. Acting coach Josephine Dillon noted Novarro developed a phobia of large animals that complicated numerous subsequent roles. Sound engineer Douglas Shearer later recalled how, years later, the mere recorded clip-clop of hooves could make the actor visibly flinch. Surviving scraps of Rome footage show only a blurred gauntlet flying across the frame, the torn glove that nearly ended Hollywood's grandest epic before it began. Brigitte Helm, 1927. 19-year-old Brigitte Helm already wore 40 pounds of metal when Fritz Lang ordered Stage 1 flooded with 92,000 gallons of canal water. The sluice burst early, filling her corset and pinning her underwater. Stagehands, waiting blind, found her only when a cut cable sparked and lit her outstretched fingers. Revived with morphine, she filmed the next take an hour later, shaking so violently microphones picked up her teeth. She kept a crescent scar on her collarbone and never allowed the robot costume near her home, calling it a brass coffin. Set carpenter Heinrich Müller's workshop journals reveal the robot suit contained no emergency release mechanisms. Each morning, Helm endured a 90-minute application process requiring 4 technicians using 68 screws to seal her inside. Medical advisor Dr. Gerhard Hoffmann documented 17 separate pressure wounds and circulatory issues from the costume's weight. Helm's wardrobe assistant Katharine Hepburn recounted how the actress often urinated inside the suit rather than face the disassembly process between takes. Lang's production records show no safety inspections occurred before flooding the set. UFA studio fire marshal Werner Klein later testified he warned against mixing electrical cables with standing water, but was overruled. Helm's personal letters to her mother, discovered in a Berlin archive, describe hallucinating from oxygen deprivation during the drowning incident. Studio physician Dr. Ernst Paulsen administered amphetamine injections between takes to keep her functioning through 16-hour shooting days. The psychological impact followed Helm throughout her career. Co-star Gustav Fröhlich recalled how she refused roles requiring restrictive costumes and developed claustrophobia so severe she could not use elevators. Makeup artist Otto Genath noted her tremors persisted for months after filming Wrapped. Conservators later found algae still trapped in the robot suit's joints, a green testament to cinema baptized in river mud. Dolores Costello, 1928. Michael Curtis released 600,000 gallons without rehearsal. The wall of water snapped temple sets, swept sheep and extras alike, and pinned Dolores Costello under collapsing scenery. Rescuers slashed her gown to drag her free. She spent 12 days in an oxygen tent battling double pneumonia. 3 men drowned, but Warner Brothers press releases mentioned only heroic stunt volunteers. Internal memos threatening dedication of the premiere, If She Dies, leaked, sparking calls for an actor's safety charter. Costello returned, wheezing, to complete close-ups in a fur-lined coat, and thereafter flinched at the sound of heavy rain. Studio physician Dr. William Schaefer's confidential reports revealed Costello suffered not only pneumonia, but also a hairline fracture of her left femur and severe contusions covering 60% of her body. Warner Brothers accountant Timothy Morgan's ledgers show $18,000 paid to families of the deceased extras, approximately $270,000 today, with non-disclosure agreements preventing public acknowledgement of their deaths. Set designer Anton Grott's blueprints, preserved in USC's film archive, show the water tanks were built to release 400,000 gallons, not the 600,000 Curtis demanded on shooting day. Water pressure calculations indicated the increased volume would exert force exceeding the set's structural tolerance by 40%. Assistant director William McGann's daily logs record his objection to proceeding without safety barriers, overruled by Curtis's infamous declaration, "They are extras. We can get more." Cameraman Hal Moore refused to film the sequence and walked off set. His replacement, Barney McGill, suffered a broken collarbone when the deluge knocked over his camera platform. Costello's wardrobe mistress, Edith Head, fashioned specialized undergarments with built-in hot water pouches to combat the actress's persistent chills during recovery. Years later, when asked to appear in another water sequence, Costello's contract specified a maximum water depth of 18 inches and no more than 5 gallons to be thrown at her at any time. James Cagney, 1932. Warner Brothers hired Marine sharpshooters to fire live rounds inches from actors for authentic sound. A ricochet .30 caliber slug whistled past Cagney's ear and shattered a lamp. He carried the dented bullet to Jack Warner's office, slammed it onto the desk, and vowed to quit unless conditions changed. The confrontation birthed petitions that merged into the nascent Screen Actors Guild. Cagney's contracts henceforth forbade live ammunition. The ricochet take remains on screen. Freeze-frame analysts can spot his involuntary flinch, an instant of genuine terror etched into nitrate. Sound engineer Nathan Levinson's equipment logs reveal the full recklessness of the shoot. Warner Brothers had recently converted to sound production and lacked library effects for gunfire. Rather than record separate effects tracks, director Roy Del Ruth ordered live ammunition to create authentic reports. Military advisor Captain Thomas Lockwood supplied 24 Marine Corps veterans with service rifles and pistols loaded with standard issue ammunition, not blanks or quarter loads. Set safety coordinator Frederick Hayes documented 3 near misses before the ricochet incident. A bullet fragment embedded in a door frame inches from actress Mary Bryan's head. Another shattered a mirror beside actor Guy Kibbe. A third punctured a water tank, flooding the sound stage. Production manager Robert Fellows' urgent memo requesting firing be moved to a separate stage was denied with a handwritten note: sound first, safety second. Studio medic Dr. Walter Raymond treated Cagney for powder burns and temporary hearing loss. The actor's personal diary, displayed at the Academy Museum, records his tinnitus lasted 3 weeks. Warner Brothers' legal counsel, Harold Berkowitz, drafted new liability waivers specifically addressing gunfire, which Cagney refused to sign. Fellow actors George Raft, Edward G. Robinson, and Paul Muni joined his protest, ultimately forcing the studio to adopt controlled gunfire protocols, including property master supervision, reduced powder loads, and mandatory protective shields between actors and discharge points. Margaret Hamilton, 1939. The Munchkinland trapdoor jammed. Flames engulfed Margaret Hamilton before she vanished. Copper-based makeup became fuel, fusing her glove to skin. Second-degree burns covered her face and hand. She waived lawsuits on the condition no child learned the witch had screamed. 6 weeks later, she returned, banning open flame, and later helped draft new pyrotechnic codes. She kept the charred glove in a shadow box, telling visitors, "Courage is riding a broom into fear." MGM safety supervisor Clarence Kolb's accident report reveals the true severity of Hamilton's injuries. Third-degree burns covering 15% of her body, requiring skin grafts to her chin, right cheek, and the back of her right hand. Studio physician Dr. Francis Whitney documented chemical burns to her respiratory tract from inhaling vaporized copper and aluminum particles. Makeup department head Jack Dawn admitted in private correspondence that the green formula contained toxic copper oxide, chosen specifically because it photographed better than safer alternatives. Special effects coordinator A. Arnold Gillespie's original pyrotechnic design called for controlled smoke pots with minimal open flame. Production manager Keith Weeks overruled him, demanding more spectacular fire effects. Mechanical engineer Frank Smith identified the faulty trapdoor mechanism. A guide rail, warped by heat from previous takes, had jammed, trapping Hamilton for 7 seconds in temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees. Hamilton's contract negotiator Richard Palmer secured extraordinary concessions for her return. No pyrotechnics within 20 feet, doubles required for all scenes involving smoke, and daily medical examinations. Costume designer Adrian created a new witch outfit with asbestos lining despite its weight and discomfort. Cinematographer Harold Rawson developed special lighting techniques to suggest fire through colored gels and moving shadows. Hamilton's personal assistant Elizabeth Harrington recorded how the actress suffered nightmares for years afterward. Yet when asked by child fans about the witch, she never mentioned the pain, saying only that green makeup took a very special kind of courage. Orson Welles, 1941. Welles smashed real mahogany in Kane's bedroom tantrum, slashing both palms, then broke 2 ankle bones tumbling down a staircase. He directed from a wheelchair, a steel brace hidden by low-angle shots that rewrote cinematography. Blood on discarded nitrate trims later revealed his fingerprints chemically etched into film emulsion, a director's signature forged in plasma. RKO property master James Altwies documented Welles' insistence on authentic period furniture for destruction scenes, rejecting breakaway props as visually dishonest. When shooting the bedroom demolition, Welles ordered away protective gloves, claiming Kane wouldn't stop for safety. Studio physician Dr. Maurice Sands' treatment notes detail 17 separate lacerations requiring 43 stitches across Welles' hands. Despite severe bleeding, Welles demanded the cameras continue rolling, creating the raw emotional intensity that defines the sequence. The staircase injury occurred during a tracking shot rehearsal 3 days later. Production designer Perry Ferguson's set drawings show the staircase had no safety rails between camera positions. Assistant director Richard Wilson's daily report describes how Welles, demonstrating a movement to actor Joseph Cotten, lost his footing on blood-slickened shoes and fell backward down 11 steps, twisting both ankles beneath his substantial weight. Cinematographer Greg Toland transformed necessity into innovation when Welles could no longer stand for extended periods. His lighting diagrams show how he developed extreme low-angle compositions that concealed Welles' wheelchair, while creating what critics would later call Kane's revolutionary visual style. Sound engineer Bailey Fessler recalled recording additional dialogue as Welles directed while suspended in traction between takes, refusing pain medication that might dull his directorial faculties. Editor Robert Wise preserved an outtake showing Welles wiping blood from a camera lens, literal evidence of a filmmaker who left his physical imprint on every frame. John Wayne, 1942. Insisting on personal dives, Wayne ruptured an eardrum at 22 feet, scarring his vestibular nerve. Vertigo plagued him for life. Between takes he clutched set railings while cameras rolled above waist. Seawater rang in his skull like eternal surf. He carried seasickness pills in desert epics, joking they were ammo for octopi, though he never dove unprotected again. Marine Coordinator Captain Lawrence Turner's production log details Wayne's refusal of both a diving double and proper equalization training. Paramount diving expert Frank Donahue recommended a minimum of 12 training sessions before attempting the underwater fight sequence. Wayne dismissed the advice, declaring he would learn by doing. Studio physician Dr. Harold Melnick documented the barotrauma's severity: 90% hearing loss in Wayne's right ear and permanent damage to his inner ear's balance mechanisms. Costume designer Edith Head modified Wayne's subsequent wardrobe to conceal support harnesses that helped stabilize him during Vertigo episodes. Director Cecil B. DeMille's assistant William Kaplan recalled how scenes were carefully blocked to position Wayne near solid structures he could subtly brace against. Sound engineer Harry Lindgren developed specialized earpieces that filtered certain frequencies that triggered Wayne's disequilibrium. Stunt coordinator Yakima Knut developed a hand signal system allowing Wayne to indicate when vertigo struck without stopping production. Motion sickness specialist Dr. Victor Goodhill prescribed a combination of scopolamine and amphetamines that Wayne carried in a silver pillbox, a constant companion for the remaining 3 decades of his career. Makeup artist Dick Smith became expert at concealing Wayne's pallor during episodes. Duke's longtime stand-in Chuck Robertson later revealed the actor's determination. He'd throw up between takes, splash cold water on his face, and growl "ready" before anyone noticed. Pride cost him more than the audience ever knew. Errol Flynn, 1936. Curtis's outlawed running W tripwires flipped 125 horses. Flynn's mount somersaulted after a premature detonation, missing his pelvis by inches. He punched Curtis, spat shattered teeth onto the map table, and swore off the director. 25 horses died, triggering congressional action and the ASPCA's power to oversee animal stunts. The Flynn rule still lets actors veto rigs they deem lethal. Stuntman Cliff Lyon's testimony before the California Labor Commission revealed the medieval brutality of the running W technique. Hidden wires attached to horses' forelegs were suddenly pulled taut by stagehands, causing catastrophic forward falls at full gallop. Studio veterinarian Dr. Wesley Young's casualty reports documented spinal fractures in 18 animals, requiring immediate euthanasia. Second Unit Director B. Reeves Eason ordered handlers to remove dead horses from camera view, but continue filming with survivors. Flynn's riding instructor, Captain Richard Webb, warned Warner Brothers executives that the combination of explosives and tripwires created an unprecedented danger level. When an explosive charge detonated prematurely during Flynn's charge, his Arabian stallion, Silver King, flipped forward, throwing the actor clear but landing on his saber, which snapped and lacerated Flynn's thigh. Studio medic Dr. Ralph Berkowitz treated a 6-inch gash that missed Flynn's femoral artery by millimeters. The confrontation with Curtis occurred in the production tent after Flynn witnessed his horse being destroyed. Makeup artist Perk Westmore documented Flynn's injuries from the fall: 3 broken teeth, a separated shoulder, and facial contusions that required shooting from his good side for 2 weeks. Animal trainer Melvin Kuntz resigned in protest, taking extensive photographs that he delivered to California Senator Clement Young, whose subsequent investigation established the American Humane Association's Film Monitoring Division. Flynn's contract attorney Albert Rogel drafted what became known as the Flynn Provision, guaranteeing actors' right to inspect and reject stunt setups they considered dangerous, a performer protection clause now standard in SAG contracts. The Australian actor later reflected in private correspondence, "I've faced crocodiles with less treachery than that Hungarian madman and his wires. Some entertainments cost too much blood." Katharine Hepburn, 1955. David Lean dyed Venice's canal with copper sulfate for sparkle, ignoring its causticity. After multiple plunges, Hepburn's eyes blistered, leaking pus-tinged tears. Darkened hotel rooms and flesh-tinted scleral shields followed. For 37 years, flare-ups reddened her gaze, but she called the pain worth it once. Location contracts now require water quality tests, an echo of her scarlet souvenir of summer. Production chemist Giovanni Beltrami's formula contained copper sulfate concentrations of 15 parts per million, triple the level considered safe for momentary eye contact. Location manager Roberto Martinelli's permits show no environmental testing was conducted before treating the canal. Hepburn's personal physician, Dr. Alexander Rhodes, documented chemical conjunctivitis so severe that corneal ulcers formed, requiring hourly antibiotic treatments. Director of photography, Jack Hildyard, developed special diffusion filters to mask the actress's inflamed sclera when shooting resumed. Hepburn's dresser, Phyllis Dalton, recalled how the actress slept with cucumber slices on her eyes and required ice compresses every 30 minutes between takes. Makeup artist Alberto De Rossi created specialized under-eye prosthetics, tinted to match Hepburn's skin tone, concealing the worst inflammation. Sound technician Red Law's daily reports note, Hepburn frequently required dialogue replacement due to pain-induced voice changes during flare-ups. Ophthalmologist Dr. Vincenzo Morelli diagnosed Hepburn with permanent damage to her lacrimal ducts, reducing natural tear production. For subsequent films, MGM contract physician Dr. Wesley Mills prescribed custom-formulated eye drops Hepburn carried in a gold case. Director George Cukor later arranged shooting schedules around her red days when symptoms flared. Venice tourism officials subsequently enacted the Hepburn Protocol, requiring chemical testing of all waters used for filming. In her private correspondence, Hepburn remained stoic. "The pain comes and goes, but the film is forever. Venice got into my eyes as surely as it got into my heart." Esther Williams, 1947. A matte-painted sky panel sealed Stage 30's pool, trapping Williams beneath an unbreakable ceiling. Concussed, she found a hinge with her toes, pried a gap, and surfaced coughing blood. She hired a personal lifeguard from then on, and Seiji demanded surface spotters for all breath-hold work. Claustrophobia haunted her elevators, but she told novices, "Keep reaching until something moves." Art director Cedric Gibbons' original design specified a removable sky panel with emergency release latches every 6 feet. Production manager Jay Marchant substituted a cheaper continuous panel to save $1,200. MGM's safety coordinator Thomas Blackburn's inspection forms show the pool was certified without underwater testing. Williams' swimming coach Gertrude Ederle, herself an English Channel conqueror, had warned about disorientation risks under artificial ceilings. Studio physician Dr. Walter Reynolds diagnosed Williams with a moderate concussion, hairline fracture of the left clavicle, and petechial hemorrhaging in both lungs from breath holding after impact. Despite injuries, production records show Williams returned to the water 36 hours later. Insurance adjuster Martin Klauber's report indicates MGM executives rejected a safety update costing $8,400, calculating potential reshoot costs as less expensive than preventative measures. Williams's Olympic training proved crucial to her survival. Her swimming double, Tony Elling, recalled how the actress meticulously mapped escape routes before every underwater sequence thereafter. Williams' contract negotiations, handled by agent Henry Wilson, established new precedents: mandatory safety divers stationed out of frame, underwater communication systems, and maximum submersion times written into shooting schedules. Technical advisor Fred Cady developed a system of colored lights, indicating remaining breath hold time. The psychological impact manifested beyond sets. Williams' husband, Ben Gage, noted she began experiencing panic attacks in confined spaces and slept with windows open regardless of weather. Yet, when coaching young swimmers for later aquatic productions, she transformed fear into wisdom. Actress Debbie Reynolds recalled Williams' advice during difficult tank work. When trapped, panic is a luxury you can't afford. Use your training, find your path, and remember, water doesn't want you dead, it just doesn't care if you live. Audrey Hepburn, 1960. A spooked mare hurled pregnant Audrey Hepburn onto volcanic rock, fracturing 4 lumbar vertebrae. 6 weeks in a plaster corset followed. The pregnancy ended in miscarriage. Edith Head hid the brace under high-waisted skirts, lavender sachets masking antiseptic. Houston shot close-ups of her eyes while guilt chewed him. Paramount later purchased the first dedicated on-location trauma ambulance, unborn fruit of a broken back. Animal handler. Raymond Kellogg's incident report reveals the mare, Sprite, had been improperly desensitized to gunfire. Despite Wrangler James Randall's warning, director John Huston ordered rifle shots during Hepburn's riding scene to create authentic reactions. Durango location physician Dr. Miguel Alvarez documented Hepburn's injuries: compression fractures of L1 through L, 4 vertebrae, pelvic contusion, and traumatic placental abruption at 16 weeks gestation. Husband Mel Ferrer's telegrams to her agent Kurt Frings reveal Paramount initially resisted evacuating Hepburn to Mexico City's Hospital Angeles, citing production delays. Production manager Howard Pine calculated each day's delay cost $14,200, approximately $125,000 today. Huston personally guaranteed the expenses, later deducting them from his director's fee. Costume designer Edith Head's sketches show how she reconstructed Hepburn's wardrobe to accommodate the rigid back brace while maintaining period authenticity. Cinematographer Franz Planer developed camera techniques focusing on Hepburn's expressive face while minimizing body movement. Script supervisor Angela Allen's shooting logs show sequences rewritten to allow Hepburn to perform seated or supported against set pieces. The psychological toll proved as devastating as the physical. Hepburn's personal assistant, Giovanna Chiti, documented the actress crying silently between takes, mourning both her lost child and damaged body. Studio psychologist Dr. Margaret Gibson noted symptoms of post-traumatic stress whenever Hepburn heard unexpected loud noises. Insurance underwriter Preston Hayes's subsequent policy revisions established the Hepburn Clause, requiring specialized medical transport for all remote locations. Hepburn herself never publicly discussed the miscarriage, but instructed her foundation to make substantial anonymous donations to maternal safety initiatives. Charles McGraw, 1960. Kirk Douglas plunged McGraw's head into scalding broth. A tile slip snapped McGraw's jaw. Kubrick filmed on, declaring terror irreplaceable. 4 days later, McGraw returned, mandible wired, his tremor now part of Marcellus's fear. Douglas quietly paid uncovered medical bills. The iron cauldron still lurks in prop storage, chipped yet ominous. Property master Gordon Cole's requisition forms show the soup cauldron was authentic Roman bronze, weighing 62 pounds when filled. Temperature readings taken immediately after the accident measured the liquid at 174 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to cause second-degree burns with 3 seconds of contact. Set safety coordinator Peter Burkos had recommended using cooled liquid with added steam effects, but director Stanley Kubrick overruled him, insisting on authentic condensation patterns. Studio physician Dr. Harold Rips diagnosed McGraw with a compound fracture of the mandible, second-degree burns on his face and scalp, and a dislocated left shoulder from the fall. Dental surgeon Dr. Wyatt Cooper installed titanium stabilizing wires that remained in McGraw's jaw throughout filming. Makeup artist Jack Dawn applied specialized prosthetics that concealed the worst burns while accentuating others for dramatic effect. The psychological impact transformed McGraw's performance. Acting coach Jeff Corey observed that the genuine trauma created a haunted quality in McGraw's eyes that perfectly suited his character's fate. Sound engineer Gordon Sawyer's logs note, McGraw's slurred speech pattern, due to the wired jaw, was retained rather than re-recorded, adding to the character's increasingly broken nature. Kirk Douglas, through his production company Bryna Productions, covered $8,400 in medical expenses after Universal's insurance denied full coverage. Studio legal counsel Harold Klein drafted new injury waivers specifically addressing authentic performance-enhancing physical stress. McGraw's subsequent contracts contained clauses forbidding actual physical harm regardless of dramatic benefit. Years later, when Universal attempted to auction the cauldron as memorabilia, McGraw purchased it privately, keeping the instrument of his suffering from becoming a collector's trophy. David Niven, 1961. A hidden girder slashed Niven's lip. Septicemia followed from tank water. He discharged himself early, reopened the wound, and collapsed again, halting production another 6 weeks. The ensuing Niven protocol mandates bacteriological testing for any water tank over 5,000 gallons. He sniffed every studio pool thereafter, refusing to dive if it smelled of bilge filtered through tweed. Set designer Jeffrey Drake's blueprints show incomplete safety specifications for the underwater cave sequence. Metal support beams had been left unpadded where actors would surface. Production manager Cecil F. Ford's accident report details how Niven struck a crossbeam while emerging from the water tank, suffering a 4-inch laceration through his upper lip and into his gum line. Location physician Dr. Ambrose Martin applied 12 stitches before discovering the Rhodes Harbor. Water contained elevated levels of E. coli and industrial waste. Within 48 hours, Niven developed a raging fever of 104 degrees. Columbia Pictures' European medical director Dr. Thomas Sherwood diagnosed septicemia and ordered immediate hospitalization. Production insurance adjuster Harold Winters calculated each day of delay cost $23,400, almost $200,000 in today's currency. Despite this, director J. Lee Thompson refused to film around Niven's scenes, creating mounting pressure for the actor's return. Niven's personal secretary Michael Trubshaw documented how the actor, delirious but determined, discharged himself against medical advice after 9 days. Makeup artist Charles Parker developed a specialized prosthetic to cover the still-healing wound. Cinematographer Oswald Morris used diffusion filters and careful lighting to minimize the visible swelling. During the 3rd day back on set, Niven's sutures ruptured during a diving scene. He lost consciousness and was rushed back to Athens General Hospital with renewed infection. Producer Carl Foreman subsequently established mandatory water testing procedures for all production tanks. Environmental engineer Walter Slocum developed the Niven protocol, requiring bacterial count assessments and chemical treatments before actor immersion. Niven's cologne-soaked handkerchief became his constant companion on later aquatic shoots. His contract writer specifically prohibited untreated water contact. Fellow actor Peter Ustinov later recalled Niven's wry observation. Medals for bravery are given for moments of courage. No one decorates you for the quiet heroism of returning to the thing that nearly killed you. We call that simply being professional. Sean Connery, 1965. A budget gap left a 3-foot opening in Bond's plexiglass shark tunnel. A bull shark wriggled through, sending Connery racing for open water, the only take where 07's panic was real. United Artists insured him for a record $10 million, and modern dual barrier rules for live animal scenes trace back to that Bahamian jolt. Dive instructors still screen the dailies. No CGI matches survival instinct firing behind those famous blue eyes. Marine coordinator Riku Browning's production logs reveal the full scope of the near disaster. The protective shark corridor was designed with quarter-inch plexiglass, but production manager Ernie Day substituted thinner material to save 1,200 pounds. Underwater cinematographer Lamar Boren noticed the gap but was overruled when shark wrangler Courtney Brown assured him the animals were well-fed and docile. What production documents omitted was that local fishermen had been chumming waters near Paradise Island for 3 days, attracting unusually aggressive predators. Diving safety officer Ramon Bravo's incident report describes how an 8-foot bull shark, among the species most dangerous to humans, forced its way through the barrier gap mid-take. Connery's quick reaction, kicking powerfully toward a secondary exit ladder, likely saved his life. The actor's military training from his Royal Navy service proved critical. He maintained his regulator in place despite the shock, preventing potentially fatal underwater gasping. Director Terrence Young initially wanted to keep the footage, but United Artists executives, horrified by the genuine terror visible on their star's face, ordered a reshoot with mechanical sharks. Insurance underwriter Lloyd's of London immediately drafted new requirements for marine stunts, including redundant barriers, emergency oxygen stations, and armed safety divers with shark repellent. Connery's subsequent contract specified double plexiglass thickness and prohibited use of wild predators within 50 feet. Diving coordinator Courtney Brown developed what became the entertainment industry's first comprehensive marine safety protocols. His Thunderball standards required mandatory escape routes, signal systems, and animal behavior specialists for all underwater work with predators. Despite the incident, Connery later described his underwater scenes as among his proudest achievements, telling stunt coordinator Bob Simmons, "Anyone can look brave with special effects. True courage is swimming toward the camera when you know what's circling behind you." United Artists insured him for a record $10 million, and modern dual barrier rules for live animal scenes trace back to that Bahamian jolt. Dive instructors still screen the dailies. No CGI matches survival instinct firing behind those famous blue eyes. The credits may roll in silence, yet the echoes of these scars keep talking. They remind us that behind every perfect frame stands a heartbeat gambling against hot lights and rising water. If their courage jolted you, imagine the unseen technicians who braced danger beside them. Help keep those voices alive. Hit like, share this story with anyone who thinks Hollywood is make-believe, and subscribe for the next deep dive into film history's hidden corridors.